All right, all right. Professor Murali
Thank you.
is our speaker on the valedictory day. Now he has logged in, joined us from USA, Washington, from his place. Yeah, very kind of you, sir. We'll send you
Thank you.
the details now.
Thank you. So it is tomorrow this time, right?
Sir, you are on mute.
Hello, Professor Murali.
Yeah, this is tomorrow at this time, right?
Not tomorrow. I mean, for us, it is 23rd Saturday.
Yeah, but I meant my presentation is tomorrow this time.
No,
possibly. For us, it is like 10 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. But for you, it is Friday night, 10:30 or 9:30.
Yeah. Today it is Wednesday.
No, today it is Wednesday for you there.
Yeah, so you're Thursday for you. Okay.
Yes, Thursday for us, and so for you.
I'm not doing Friday, right? I'm doing Saturday, right?
We're doing Saturday Indian Standard Time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll soon share. We are about to begin and waiting for the speaker of the day to join us. She said she will join us soon.
I intend to come at least 10 minutes early, Anthony, if you don't mind, so we can look at the last minute logistics or any technical challenges,
Sure, definitely we will.
Okay. So
good.
you will come in 10 minutes early, right?
Yeah, yes, very much, because we are live streaming also. So the link is given only at that, after we log in, after we open the platform.
So it is not this link. So I cannot use today's link for Saturday, right?
For you, same link. So we have two platforms simultaneously going. It is actually, we are broadcasting it in the Zoom platform. This is happening where you have joined, now. Zoom.
Okay.
But at the same time, we are giving a link to the live streaming in the YouTube at the same time, because we have more participants.
Okay, I got it.
Zoom will admit only 100.
Yeah, and even mine, you need to send me the Zoom ID and the password.
Sure, I will. I'm going to do it now.
No, even after the presentation is fine. Thank you.
All right. I will. Okay. So we are going to Zoom begin.
Okay.
Professor Shruti has joined us. Hi, Professor Shruti. Hello.
She's joining.
Okay. Is there what's any problem? Now, Professor Shruti.
No, she's joining, not yet fully joined.
She's joining, yeah. Yes, we admitted her.
Yeah.
Actually, now you can see me.
Yeah, she's joining. She needs any password or ID. Joining in the Ganikil. Does she have the password?
Yeah.
Password and.
No, she has joined.
No, yeah, you joined. Need to call first.
Andrew?
Yes, sir.
Please make her. Okay, I will do that. Shruti, hi, Shruti. No. Where is she?
She's on mute.
She's on mute?
Yeah.
She can unmute herself, no?
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning, Shruti.
Good morning, all of you.
Yeah, good morning. And we are going to make you,
the co-host, right? So
co-host. Yes, for you to share.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to start. Okay, Shruti, Professor Shruti, are you ready?
Unmuting.
Hello, Professor Shruti, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, okay. So, very good morning to you all, dear participants, now located across the country, and a few of us, outside of India, particularly Professor Murali Nair from California, who is the speaker giving the valedictory lecture on Saturday in India, and for him it will be night, like after 9 in USA, and he's also now with us. I'm very glad that he's with us now, Professor Murali Nair, and all other senior accomplished professors who are in the platform in the Zoom room, and perhaps watching in the YouTube. A very good morning to you once again. We are into the third day of our webinar, which is going very successfully and very fruitfully. The participants have, generously gave their feedback, saying that it is very useful the previous 2 days. And we are on the third day. And third day, we have Dr. Bushra Begum chairing the session. She is a faculty of our Department of Sociology, specialized in developmental studies with a special reference to displacement issues. So she's having her research, still ongoing researches in this field, and she's a very teacher, whom students look after too. I mean, they like to have her classes, and she's there. She will be chairing the session. Now over to you, Dr. Bushra.
Thank you, sir. Respected, can you hear me, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Respected head of the department, Dr. Anthony Parakel, Professor Shruti Tambe, today's main speaker, and dear participants. A very good morning to all of you. Today is the third day of our international webinar hosted by the Department of Sociology along with IQAC, University of Kerala, and Researchers Union. Today with us, Professor Shruti Tambe. I think there is no need to introduce her to the sociology researchers here because she is very well known to us as an academician and an active member in Indian Sociological Society, as the managing committee member, ISS, and the executive member in the International Sociological Society, current executive editor, newsletter of Research Committee on Social Movement, International Sociological Association, then secretary and treasurer of RC 47, International Sociological Association. So let me explain more about Professor Shruti to those researchers who belong to other social science disciplines among the participants. Professor Shruti is currently the head of the Department of Sociology, Savitribai Phule, Pune University, coordinator of Social Sciences, MHRD Teaching and Learning Center, and also work as the director, Euroculture program sponsored by world-renowned Erasmus Mundus at the Savitribai Phule University. She was also a visiting professor of Toronto, Canada from 2011 to 13. Professor Shruti bagged many awards. I would like to mention some of those awards. One is Erasmus Plus Staff Mobility Award in 2017 in Middlesex University, United Kingdom. Then Sarai CSDS Studentship to Work on Cities Award, and Premathai Kametkar Award for Activism. Then Cephis Award for Young Historians at Senegal, West Africa. Then UNESCO ISA Award. The list of awards shows some for activism and some for academics. Besides this award, she has to her credit many number of books and articles. Among the books, I must mention some of them. One is Low Wage in High Tech. This is the latest book, I think. It was published by Oxford University Press, New York. Then Urban Poverty in the Context of Jawaharlal Nehru Urban Rural Mission, published by Yashada and National Resource Center on Urban Poverty. Then she is also the editor of Sociology section of Social Science Encyclopedia in regional language, in her regional language Marathi. and also published several research papers in international and national journals, including Current Sociology, Interventions, Economic and Political Weekly, and Sociological Bulletin. She regularly contributes to magazines of repute in her state regional language Marathi. Professor Shruti has been engaged in many number of national and international research projects. She completed several research projects sponsored by UGC, ICSSR, SPPU, and so on in the national level. In the international level, the most important one that I think, international collaborative research sponsored by Canadian Social Science Research Council and Toyota Foundation, Japan, and international collaborative project with Penn State University, United States. Professor Shruti delivered lectures in several international conferences and national conferences in many different countries, including Australia, Canada, UK, Finland, Spain, and Africa. Let me point out some of her interest and specialization for your information. Critical Southern theory, critical globalization, then sociology of collective action, then gender and labor in urban locations, and reflexive pedagogies are some of our areas of specialization and interest. Yes, of course, the list of her contribution to the academics is too big. If you search her name, the name Professor Shruti in Google, you can see the number of interviews and articles with related to Professor Shruti. That itself shows her scholarliness and vast knowledge in the field of social sciences. Hence, we are very much lucky to have her here for today's lecture. I'm not extending my words because I know that you are all eagerly waiting for this today's lecture. Hence, with these words, with all love and respect, I formally invite you, ma'am, for disseminating your thoughts and insights related to the craft of academic writing. Welcome, Professor Shruti, to this lecture. Then let me also welcome all the participants for this webinar. You can send your questions in our chat box, or ask questions after the lecture. Thank you. Thank you all. And Professor Shruti, ma'am, welcome to this lecture. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A very good morning to Dr. Anthony Palakal, the head of the department, Dr. Bushra Begum, our dear colleague from the department, and all the participants who have joined from across, not just Kerala, not just other states, but also from abroad. A very good morning to everyone. I first of all congratulate the department for taking up this particular initiative, because it is so much needed. And believe me, that university after university, we find that students are struggling to know the craft of writing and the art of writing both. And in our university structure in India, we don't find many courses on academic writing going on. So this is a welcome step, and I congratulate the Department of Sociology for organizing this international webinar. Now let me quickly move to my own presentation. So let me share screen, and then we can begin quickly. All right. So, Madam Bushra, is someone also managing the waiting room? Because there are people entering the waiting room all the time.
Sure. I'll admit, ma'am. I'll admit.
Shruti, only 100 can be admitted. That's why.
Yeah, no, so I just see those messages. So I hope someone else is handling that.
Yeah, we are handling.
I'll just focus on my presentation.
Yes. They are redirected to the YouTube room.
Okay, thank you so much. So as Professor Anthony Palakal has already asked me, the title given to me is The Craft of Writing. And I want to slightly modify the title and say the art and craft of writing, actually, because it's not just craft, it's not just, the technique of it, but it's also the passion and the soul that you involve in it. So it's the art as well. Now, having said this, I'm going to quickly give you a kind of overview. The first thing is we need to understand and remember that Indian society is full of, we all know, so many smaller communities, caste communities, tribal communities, and so on, which are, multilingual and so on and so forth. And this pluralism, which is the key feature of Indian society, also has another huge backdrop that we have to remember. India's ancient history. But historically, India always was an oral culture. We were oral societies and not written culture or written society. And therefore, I find it a peculiar problem with Indian research students that there is this weight on how do I write? Why do I write? How will I be legible to other people? And too much of anxiety and stress about writing. So I think if we are aware that, well, my personal stress is also because of this societal historical fact, then many times dealing with our stress becomes easier. As you remember, famous sociologist C. Wright Mills had said that biography and history are to be taken into consideration by a sociologist. When we want to give beyond common sense version of social relations, then we must also remember that our personal problems are not personal, but they are due to social, structural, cultural, historical issues. Having said this, therefore, what I'm arguing is writing is comparatively a new activity, a new venture for majority of population in Indian society. And again, as Madam Bushra Begum in my introduction said, that I very actively write in Marathi, my regional language, the regional language of Maharashtra. We know that most of us, if you look at a state like Kerala, for example, people who read and write Malayalam and people who can read and write in English, the proportion is really less, right? So we have different linguistic publics in our midst. And we should also note all of this. So the transition from orality to writing is very hard. And then secondly, this transition becomes even more difficult in India, where in English came only after the British came to India. And therefore, whenever we think about writing, we feel too much of responsibility and burden when we think about, I want to write something now. And I'm not trying to scare you, but on the other hand, I'm trying to tell you that if we all are aware of these issues, then we can definitely deal with them. I don't know what I've done. The size has gone. Is it okay now? Can you see the screen? Is the screen now visible to everyone?
Yes, this is fine.
All right. So I would start by giving general habits for grooming for academic writing. If we are calling it a craft, then we need to remember that there should be certain general habits. And, academic writing should come very easy and natural to us. And for that, we need to have certain everyday habits. The first thing that I want to highlight here is reading itself is the basic habit that a researcher should have. If you want to write, you need to read. Unless you read, you won't know what are the types of writing, what is a good style and what is a bad style, what should I prefer, what I should not prefer, etc., etc. And when I say read, I'm going to suggest that a social science student needs to understand social life, right? Beyond our own subject area, our own topic for research. And therefore, we should read fiction, we should read philosophy, we should read poetry, and we should know what's going on in our country right now. I'm many times intrigued. You know, when we senior people are on the interview table with youngsters, we just ask them, suppose someone says, right now it was said that Dr. Bushra Begum works on displacement. So if there's a candidate who says, I work on displacement, and if I ask that candidate, can you tell me Kerala floods and displacement, what is the relationship? Many times the person looks quite blank at me. If I ask them what happened in Mumbai about displacement, then that person doesn't remember the metro car shade and the RA colony forest was, the 2,000 trees were killed last year, and the tribals there are facing the danger of getting displaced. Current affairs, reading newspapers, reading web portals, reading magazines, reading good quality journals has to be a everyday habit. Just like you and me have to have our morning coffee, we have to read. Reading should come that naturally to us, that we drink water or we want to eat our breakfast. Reading should be like that. For a good author, good reading is a must. That is my point. So suppose your domain area is something like, I'm giving here an example in the slide, women workers in informal sector. I have been working in this area. What would you suggest? What all one should read for this? Maybe you could just raise your hand and unmute and tell me, a couple of you. Or maybe you write in the chat box and Madam Bushra will tell me what is written there. Please go ahead. We have to go beyond our domain area to general contours of sociology. If that is so, then what all one should read? Can you just think of any examples? If I'm saying women workers in informal sector in India, what all one should read? Is there any answer, Madam Bushra?
Yeah. Labor reforms, reforms, and
so we have to read on labor reforms.
Then journals and magazine. Then currently in India, government publications on demographic issues.
Yes.
These are the answers that we got.
Okay. So from law to government reports to even newspaper articles, we'll have to collect. But also please remember, if you are from Kerala, you should keep an eye on Malayalam literature. There could be a good novel around this issue. Like I remember there's one very good autobiography which was written in Hindi and then was translated in English called Life Less Ordinary, which is autobiography of a domestic worker in Delhi. So, you know, even that tells you a lot about the perceptions of the domestic worker about self and society, the humiliation, the respect that she got, or the insults that she came through, the kind of existential struggles that she's experienced. So the subjective aspects, the qualitative aspects of the whole problem can be studied through even poetry or drama. So good theater, we all know in regional spheres, we have some good plays also coming up. Good regional movies are there. We should, you know, collect all of this as our material, which really teaches us. And that can feed into our style of writing. Then the second kind of habit that I am trying to talk about is really thinking about curiosity. Basically, if you are not a curious person, you might not become a good researcher, forget about becoming a good scholar. So, one should be curious about theoretical developments in one's own area, like sociology or history or economics, whatever your discipline is. One should be very, very thoughtful, and one should be thorough with concepts. What are the new concepts that are coming in my own area of research? And that will give you conceptual clarity. And the third issue is obviously methodological debates, because when you start writing, it's not going to be a dead process, a process without life. You know, I wrote 2 paragraphs, I wrote 3 paragraphs. It's not mechanical like that. What you need to do is really, you have to include your heart and soul and your data together, and the lens that you have to use to analyze your material is theoretical developments. Then you will choose the latest of the theories. Conceptual clarity, new concepts should be there, not something from 1960. It doesn't help. Parsons, Merton, or take anyone, Galbraith in economics, whoever, E.H. Carr in social history, in history, who talks about oral history. These scholars were great. They are really heroes, but they were reflecting on their own times. For your time, 2020, you need theory and method and concept of today. Concepts which can talk about today's life should be used. And therefore, you have to be continuously looking at new sources, upgrade your knowledge, update yourself in every way possible. What is the starting point? Since we are talking about academic writing, obviously a research project is the starting point for my academic writing. And my approach has to be the one which can really balance, which can bring together macro perspective and micro perspective. Again, I would remind you of C. Wright Mills and others who talk about one person's problem in the context of American society, World War I, World War II, the aftermath of the wars, basically take a wider, comprehensive perspective. Don't tell us, sometimes we ask questions. I met a scholar who told me that I have been working on old people's issues, aging, gerontology. And I was asking, what was the situation of euthanasia in different cultures? And that person was blank. What is euthanasia? Because never thought that a very comprehensive, wider framework is needed. Aging is also connected to law. Aging is connected to economy. Aging is connected to politics, not just family. So beyond the obvious, we need to go. For example, I'll just, by the by, tell you one example. Right now, studies about who is dying in the US because of Corona, COVID-19 pandemic are showing that the old people in old people's home are dying more and more. And it is because these old people's homes in the USA, supposedly we all know we call it the superpower of the world, etc. But in that, unfortunately, the government aid to the old age homes has been cut down. And there are no regular health checkups, not much of effort is done for the well-being and immunity building of old people, etc. And as a result, we find that right now, due to COVID-19, many old people have died. Disproportionately more old people are dying in the USA as compared to other countries. My point is, therefore, macro to micro is very, very essential. You can't take just one way of looking at phenomena. Similarly, international to local. We have to find connections between these factors. And one should not have any, one should not be very reserved or very selective. I read only these kinds of readings. I don't like this methodology. I don't like that theory. This won't do. As a scholar, our basket should be filled with all kinds of studies using various perspectives, various methodological positions. I'm sure Dr. Palakal would agree with me that for coursework, for MPhil and PhD students, one of the assignments in my department we always give as a compulsory assignment is choose any two books with different theoretical perspectives on the same issue and review them. Tell us, just because the theory is different, how the lens became different. Similarly, we give them another exercise, pick up two books with two different methodologies used by the scholars and try and bring out the positive aspects and the shortcomings of every methodological approach, every methodological position that was taken. There's no time right now. I would just flag and say that we all know there are two positions about ontology in social science research. There are two positions about epistemology in social science research, and accordingly, there are two methodological positions, qualitative research and quantitative research in social science research. So methodological positions, different theoretical positions, you cannot really choose something. Sometimes teachers at my age come across research scholars who would approach you and say, ma'am, everything is ready. My data is ready, data analysis is ready, conclusion chapter is ready. Please give me some theory. You tell me which theory I should add, and then I'll add it in my chapter 2. If you didn't have a lens, how did you go to society and collect the facts? Theory and method are two lenses through which you have to look at social phenomena. And if you have not decided the number of the glass that you are wearing for your specs, obviously your search was a wrong search. It's quite likely that you have picked up wrong data for wrong hypotheses. You have not been very selective in terms of which respondents are more important for your qualitative narratives than other kinds of respondents. So theory and method, you have to be very, very careful right in the beginning. And lastly, in the starting of the project, you have to have substantive research questions. You know, like if you are rowing in a boat, you have to ensure that you have a compass in place, right? So if you don't have solid, well-formulated, comprehensive research questions, obviously your research journey will be a wavered one. To be able to go to your research goals successfully, to reach to your objectives in a systematic manner, and to save your energy, it's most important that your research questions are like compass to any sailor on the sea, in a boat. That's what I would really highlight. Most important thing about starting point in the craft of writing is nothing but start writing. So the biggest superstition that we have is, I have to spend my 3-4 years formulation of problem, reading about methodology, reading about theory, doing my assignments, then literature review, going to the field, then data analysis, and then I'll think of writing the report. I think it's a wrong way of approaching this. And that's why, if you remember, right in the beginning, I said, it is art and craft of writing. So if you're an artist, if you're a painter, you try and sketch every day. If you're a singer, every morning you will sing and practice, right? If you're a dancer, every day you will devote some time to practicing your art. If you are an academician, you have to practice writing every day. I think in one of the books, Professor Andre Betty, famous sociologist, very senior, respected sociologist, has written that every morning when he used to reach his office in the university at 9:30, first 1 hour, he didn't meet anyone, he did not talk to anyone. That 1 hour was his practice of writing. So he said, every morning I wrote 500 words. And unless I finished writing 500 words, I did not meet anyone, I did not talk to anyone, I did not engage in any teaching or any administrative work. I think every young researcher especially should make this a habit. Every day, at least 250 words you have to write before going to sleep. Unless you do that, writing doesn't become easy and natural to you. Another thing I would say, once you start all of this, then arranging your material is a very important task. If you are doing quantitative research, then it will be your data, your facts and figures and tables and graphs and so on. If you are doing qualitative research, then it would be stories and narratives and audio recordings and so on and so forth. If you are doing visual research, obviously your research material is of a different kind. Whatever kind of material you have got, you have to continuously arrange it by classifying it. You need to divide your material into classes, and those pre-classified kind of templates should be ready Nowadays, you people completely work on computers. So on a computer, you can create templates. But otherwise, if you don't want to use computer all the time and save your eyes and your hands, well, no problems. You can just make files. And you have to have a master chart where you have written what is your topic. Under that, what are the subheadings? Under the subheadings, what are the subsections? And under each of the subsections, which part of the data or narrative you would like to really keep. So this exercise, again, has to be done in the beginning, but you can't just say that I've done it. As your work processes, new classifications will also add. For example, I'm working on informal sector labor, and I'm writing about farming, and I'm writing about forestry and fishing, but then I might come across a very new economic activity that is started. For example, surrogate mothers. That is also informal labor. Women's wombs are being taken on hire these days. That is also informal sector labor. There's no written contract mostly. Only the contract is about the bodily damage or the treatment part. But how much of money is being given, this, that, everything is not formalized everywhere. So those kinds of cases would come under informal sector. So as you go down in the field, you can add classifications also. Keep on reviewing and reformulating your templates for arranging your material. Continuously take a stock and identify what is absent. You know, I have decided these 5 headings, but when I go to the field, I didn't find category 4 at all. I'm not getting information on it. Please make a note of it and study it deeply. Maybe why you're not getting that data itself can become another hypothesis. Why certain aspects are not answered by your respondents in, for example, unstructured interviews, itself can become a substantial finding for your project. So gaps, you know, in your own work themselves should be taken not as something to be hidden, something which is your problem, but something that should be taken up academically as a valid point for analysis and then reflection for the field. Let other sociologists think about it, why people are not answering this particular part, okay? So I'm saying every absence, every gap should also be treated as potential for next research project or potential for adding a particular angle to your research problem. What are the strategies for developing your craft? And I think one of the strategies we all know is, of course, language proficiency. And on the internet, you will find these days, there are innumerable courses, paid courses for academic writing. And English departments typically are floating these courses. But I must tell you that for sociology, language proficiency doesn't only mean flowery English. It also means your command over concepts and theory. Because our language comes from, for example, history. Then you need to know historiography and the specific terms that are used in that field. If you are a feminist economist, you should know what are the latest debates in the philosophy of care, which is not essentially in economics, which is from philosophy, but you have to draw on it if you are a practicing feminist economist. So you will have to go to philosophy, you will have to go to sociology, political science, history, so on and so forth, and draw and borrow terminology and concepts. Make for yourself an annotated bibliography, make for yourself a glossary of kinds about terms. There's a beautiful book, I really like it, I always prescribe it for my students, at least for sociology, called A to Z Sociology. And it just gives you, it's a kind of dictionary, which gives you major terms in sociology and their meanings in 2, 2, 3 lines. So language proficiency here, of course, means correct English, correct grammar, correct knowledge about syntax, phrases, and so on. But more than that, it also highlights your scientific language or scientific terminology. The other part is the importance of rhetoric, persuasion, and argumentation. Now, I'm going to not really delve into all of this in much of details, but I can only suggest to you how you could look up and how could go around doing this. The point in all of these three aspects as strategies that I'm highlighting is that whenever you are doing a piece of academic writing, you are essentially engaging with people. You want to communicate with people. And the communication has to be legible, understandable, reader-friendly, and effective. Now remember, it has to be strong and effective, and at the same time, people should understand it. So you want to simplify, but you don't want to oversimplify, right? And for this, therefore, you will have to use different kinds of strategies in different time periods. For example, rhetoric and just a minute, huh? So rhetoric and persuasion are the strategies which will teach you how one could really practice one's argumentation in an effective manner. As I said earlier, you need to really know how your point can be effective but need not be over aggressive. There's a balance that you have to make. Rhetoric, effective language, but that language should not be too verbose. It's too heavy, too filled with jargon, then people won't even read it. So a balance is really essential. Thirdly, you have to have a balance between description and analysis. You should not just describe things, but you have to cull out analysis, and for that, the technique of argumentation is very, very important. Okay, so you need to learn to articulate your arguments right from your first day. Ask yourself, why did I choose this topic? Can I write 5 pages explaining to people why this research project is really important? Why this research problem is interesting? Why people should be interested in this particular topic? That itself, we need to know. Then we also need to know how to balance your description and analysis. As I said earlier also, too much of argumentation, too much of analysis, too much of description, everything has to be avoided. There has to be enough of a balance between all of this. Sometimes some researchers, especially from the quantitative side, will give you fabulous graphs and tables and statistics, but you don't know what are the gaps in the data. Those should be honestly addressed. So too much of analysis also kills many times. So that can be avoided. Then we all know that I'm coming to the last line of this slide. There should be a conscious effort to link your data or narratives with claims. Many times in our hypothesis section or in our conclusion section, there are too many claims that we are making. But please check whether these are backed by evidence from the ground. Continuously check and reformulate whether what you are writing is evidence-based or not. Sometimes we do lose evidence, and therefore we need to reformulate what we are saying. There is a checklist that one should really prepare. And I'm suggesting what could be the checklist for the craft of academic writing. The first thing is where exactly you want to publish, because we all know in today's world, writing is for publishing. And publishing these days is so important that, uh, sometimes there are these funny experiences that we have, hilarious really, where people walk in the interview chamber of the vice chancellor with a trolley bag, trying to impress everyone that a suitcase is filled with my publications. And we all know those kinds of publications don't help. Neither are you reputed as a good scholar, nor are you proving your point. So it is good to pick up. It's good to be selective. Where exactly do you want to publish? Do you want to over-publish and sound childish? No. You should publish when you know you have something to offer to the readers. Something original you should be able to offer to the readers, then only you should think about writing. So my previous point, you have to have substantive research questions. You should have solid questions. That with those questions, when you go to the field, definitely you have some meaty, substance to write about, original material to write about. Otherwise, just reinventing the wheel is no fun, even in academic writing. And unfortunately, we all know, Dr. Palakal will agree with me, because of API, nowadays people are getting into meaningless publishing. I think only the author and the publisher reads it, no one else many times. And I think that's a sorry state of affairs. And we should not therefore get into the same game. If those people are publishing 20 articles per year, I'll also do the same. I think instead, we should really pay attention to writing, as my own teacher, Professor D.N. Danagare, ex-president of Indian Sociological Society, used to always say, every year a good scholar should publish maximum 2 research papers in a peer-reviewed journal. And he used to say, in those days, of course, 2 is maximum that he could handle. One who was a vice chancellor, even while he was a vice chancellor, he could publish. He was member secretary of Indian Council of Social Science Research, and still he was publishing. So he was saying, if you have this riyaz, everyday practice of writing, then definitely to quality level, really good original articles, research papers, you can publish in a year. Some years, and we all go through this, some years are really good because you write a paper, but the cycle of publication is very long. So maybe in a year, suddenly 3 papers are published. A book has also come out with your article, 2 journals, and 1 year would be that only 1 article came and 2 came the next month. It happens. And we also have our personal cycles. Friends, respect that. There are deaths in the family, there are illnesses, there is childbirth, there is migration. It's okay. Don't be in the rat race of publishing without having substance to publish. Take it easy. But whatever you do, do as art and craft. I repeat, do it with your heart, intellect, and soul together, where you are satisfied that you have made a paper. If you don't know something, with folded hands, you should say, I'm sorry, but I don't understand in this field. I have, apologies, because certain topics I don't know. I haven't studied those sociologically. And I thought I should not give a research article which is just rambling. So senior colleagues also understand that, and they're generous enough to say, okay, we understand, right? So that is at least my addition to this slide. But once you decide, then you have to pick up. Where do you want to publish? International journal, national level journal, which kind of journal, which publishing house, all of that. And to know that, you have to read. You should know. So they always say, For example, if you want to publish in India in Economic and Political Weekly, please read EPW for 6 months. For 6 months, read EPW sincerely. Then you will know what EPW accepts and what EPW rejects. Friends, please remember, when you submit 5 articles, 1 is likely to get accepted and 4 will definitely be rejected. Because impact factor of good journals these days is dependent upon how many articles did you reject. That is impact factor. What is impact factor? How many articles you rejected out of how many articles. So it's a ratio. It's a ratio of how many submissions came to you and how many you rejected. So, and that is what matters these days, impact factor of your writing, where you published. If it is that, you need to know that you have to study well what that journal is interested in. There are journals which prefer certain theories, certain methodological perspectives, certain concepts they are dealing with. There are special issues looking at certain aspects of phenomena. And therefore, you have to continuously keep reading at least 20 journals. You should know 30 journals. You should read 20 journals regularly. Then you can zero in on some 5 journals and keep trying. And then down the line, your article will be published. Every journal, or for book, every publishing house has separate protocols, separate style sheets, separate, methods of writing bibliography and so on. And the readership is also different. And therefore, this kind of reading and studying the journal or the publishing house is very, very important. Because if you hit at the right point, your manuscript is likely to be accepted. Otherwise, rejection will be the easy reaction from the other side. Which format would you like to publish in? If I may continue the example of EPW, then they have something called special article, something called commentary, something, so there are different sections. These days, EPW has something called EPW Engage, where some different kinds of articles or different topics are being chosen more frequently. So one has to really study the nature of the journal that you want to present in, or the web portal. It could be a website also for your generation these days. Sometimes you have to also make a decision, open source article or not, what kind of publication you want, etc. So, because open source websites have again different protocols, and there are different advantages and disadvantages. So you should think about it. And then what is the timeline of that publication? As I told you, these days, even Indian Sociological Society's Sociological Bulletin has up to 1.5 years of waiting. They accept your article, but it is published almost by 2 years, 18 months. So you have to imagine that. Sometimes if the research paper is on current affairs or it is very topical, then they might not take it also, because they also know it's going to get published in 2022, right? So, and you also need to know what are your priorities. If you're working for a job right now, then you need maybe a publication quickly and one publication can wait. So those are the decisions one has to make. Then lastly, therefore, there are some factual technical aspects also, like footnotes, endnotes, bibliography, references, in-text references, and all of that one has to be very serious about and very conscious about. Agreed that your research is very good quality, your writing is very good quality, but it has to be in a certain framework to be called as academic writing. We all know that journalistic writing and academic writing are different. To be known as academic writing, you have to accept some different things. And therefore, these things become extremely important. Lastly, you have to, again, I'll go back. If you have solid research questions, you can actually think about 4 or 5 articles immediately. But if your research questions are very superficial, then it becomes very difficult. So please, whenever you want to think about publishing or writing, first think about what you want to do in your research project. Spare a lot of time and energy about how will I conceive this research project? What kind of research do I want to do? If that research becomes really wholesome, then almost for 10 years, you can think about relating your data with the new developments that are happening in society. But for that, you have to think also in a different fashion. And there are some technical things also. For example, intellectual property right, not just of you as a writer of your article, but the quotations that you are giving and so on. So, intellectual property rights of others, patents of others should be kept in mind when you are writing a piece. Academic writing expects that a writer knows the factual technical framework and the protocols for academic publication. Lastly, ethical framework is something we cannot let go. We all know the famous case or the infamous case. Famous anthropologist Margaret Mead lived with the Samoas, and her famous anthropological book, you must be knowing, about the rites of passage in the community. And the book was published, and the book became the bestseller and one of the best books even today we talk about when we talk about ethnographic research, participant observation, etc. But one particular bit you need to know. After many years, Margaret Mead went back to the community to say thank you. And actually what happened was the community literally hurled abuses at her. And there were objections taken by people of the community saying that, Madam, you interviewed us and you said this is for research, but we never knew that you will publish it, sell the books, and earn money and reputation. Give us our share. You have cheated us. You became famous by writing about us. Please remember, the same objection any community can take on you and me, because there are ethics involved. And therefore, the Helsinki Convention has already brought out, it is called as Helsinki Declaration of Research Ethics. Everyone should know before publishing anything. In fact, it's better that you need to know it when you start your writing itself. Don't wait till publication. A good researcher should always know what is yes and no as per the research ethics protocols. To come to our own field, International Sociological Association on its website has already published the research ethics for ISA members, and Indian Sociological Society has also published the research ethics for Indian sociologists. I would really plead everyone, request everyone to look up these particular documents and follow them up. I'm coming almost to the end of my presentation. What are the challenges in the craft of academic writing? One of the things that people always tell us, writer's block. And I think practice just, is the cure for writer's block. You just have to force yourself to write every day. Revisit your materials and write. Revisit your materials and write. But please remember, you should have that inner feeling that I have done so much of research, I owe it to write about it. I owe it to my field. I owe it to the people who gave me interviews. And that commitment and passion can take away the writer's block. Then procrastination is another problem. Till the end, you don't write. You just postpone. Somewhere one has to really, again, practice and resolution are the only things that can tell you to get out of it. And lastly, there are ethical dilemmas. Should I say everything that my respondents have told me? How should I decide what to divulge and what not to divulge? It's always good to have senior scholars with you to discuss these issues. And I have always believed, friends, that none of us becomes a hero. You know, Madam Bushra Begum introduced me in very high language. But ma'am, not just you, but to everyone I want to say, every one of us is part of a chain, you know, link in a chain. And academics is all about academic community. First thing is, we should admit that we are part of a community. All are equal, all are learning, and all should share with each other. In my own language, Marathi, there's a proverb that we all are standing on the shoulders of the previous generation. And that's why our horizon is further than my parents, my grandparents' horizon. So it's not about me being too brainy or too great, you know. It's about the scholars before me who have written so much theory, methodology, substantive booklets, monographs, reports. Government is giving me data, and with that, I am drawing a lot of material. So be very humble and be in an academic community. Never feel ashamed to ask your colleagues, your senior colleagues, who should be your friends as equals. Yeah, and your students also become your friends slowly. Discuss with them. What do you think about this particular issue? I'm slightly confused. How does one go ahead? It's always good to have different perspectives to decide. So there are ethical dilemmas, and my answer for all of these three challenges in this slide that I mentioned is having a good academic community of fellow travelers. That makes our journey quite easy. You sing along the way, you laugh along the way, and you slog along the way, you study hard, but you enjoy the journey. So the journey should be enjoyed, and that's why the community is very important. Not just pinnacles and islands of excellence, but a community and camaraderie is very important. What one should avoid, a no, 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 sexist language. And there are many conventions now. For example, in Britain, now there are conventions. What words are not to be used, banned? Just a minute. Sorry. So the first thing is sexist language is a no-no. And there are now many guidelines. Please read them and follow. Even International Sociological Association has already issued a protocol about this. That, you know, whenever you're talking about human beings, don't say his, say her, say her. So non-sexist language is a major ethical consideration these days. Then don't make sweeping generalizations. You have studied one village or 5 villages, but you should not say that this is humanity. No, we don't know about humanity. You just know about your own field. So be very modest in making claims in your conclusion chapter. That about this particular sample, I know this. It can be generalized to a certain extent. I remember Max Weber, who told us that causality could be for natural sciences. If this is this, then it is this. But Max Weber very emphatically tells us for social sciences, we should use the language of probability. If this and this happens, probably this will happen. The probability factor in human emotions, human psyche, human behavior, we all know about it, but we should write it also in our own research project reports. Too lengthy a dissertation or too lengthy an article, too big a book is not something I would advise you for. We love ourselves, fine. We love what we write, fine. But please be a severe critique of yourself when you edit your own work. And when you edit, think about it from the perspective of the reader. What the reader will like and not like about you. And lastly, too short a dissertation will also not help. So again, a balanced position is what we expect in this case. Now there's this, we all know, very useful and very good textbook written by Alan Bryman, Oxford University Press. As you all know, it's a very good student resource. I really like that book on social research methods. In that book, there is this long checklist that they have given, issues to consider for writing up a piece of research. And I think you can take a look at it. It's very long. You can take a look at that. But basically, there are these almost 60 questions that they want every author to really check before going ahead. Okay? So thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you for listening to me. And I'm so hopeful that we are going to read so much more quality material as young scholars are coming up. Lastly, I would just make one comment. You know, I passed my MA before 1990. I passed MA in 90, exactly. In the last 30 years, the contours of social sciences have changed almost completely. For example, social science and humanities, the boundaries have gone now. Okay? The debate about Marxism or structural functionalism is completely gone. Now you are thinking about post-colonial theory or decolonial theory. We were taught about quantitative methodology being very important. Today you have narrative analysis, hermeneutical explanations, right, as very important strategies. Institutional ethnography as very important strategies. So a plea to teachers, please revolutionize your BA and MA teaching. Unless you do that, the writings by Indian scholars will not be accepted for publication by international publishers, because they're already looking for decolonial theory terminology, institutional ethnography methodology being used in your reports. And if you still write about Merton and structural strain and Parsons and Karl Marx said this, etc., it won't work really. We have to continuously upgrade and update ourselves and use the latest terminology that is being used in other parts of the world. The other tendency we have, especially in India, is we are so confident that India is unique. But if you keep on writing from that perspective, then that doesn't get published internationally. If something very small, something happens in Kerala, we never talk about it as a global problem. But think about Paris. Some small thing happens close to Paris, and the French scientists write about it as a global problem. So you know that confidence also Indians should have now of posing research questions based on your micro data at the global level. And that will help us publish in international platforms more and more. Lastly, the genre of academic writing has changed drastically. And many times I find the research guides and the research committees are still stuck upon chapter 1 is this, chapter 2 is that, chapter 4 is that. Well, it's no longer like that. It's not such a straight-jacketed kind of formula. These days, people are submitting a novel as a PhD thesis. People are submitting a long poem as findings and conclusion. The world is changing. The world of science is changing. The world of publication is changing. So in the university circuits, we need to open our windows and our doors and get the fresh breeze and change ourselves in a refreshing manner. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you for listening to me carefully. And I apologize for the initial technical glitches and therefore my delay in joining the group. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Shruti, for your wonderful lecture. Many of our participants rightly pointed out in our chat box that the lecture provided them high enthusiasm and energy for doing research. Ma'am, she has clearly explained what is the craft of reading, writing, and publication. And she also reminded us to find a new way of thinking in the field of academic research and publication. So now the session is open for discussion. If you have questions, please unmute your mic and ask questions directly to her.
If I may, Dr. Thambe, I have a question on how to simplify research questions. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yes. So I'm interested in understanding how one can streamline a topic from a vague area of interest to a highly specific research question. This is mainly for research at the undergraduate level.
To be very frank, I feel that the research at the undergraduate level is a different ball game. Right now, we were focused more on academic writing. So I'm talking about high-level research projects, which would culminate into publications, you know. Undergrad level, I feel that, I would use one strategy which I can share with you. But please remember, undergrad research, we should not encourage too much to get into publishing at journal level, etc., peer-reviewed journal, etc. The college can publish a small booklet encouraging the students, but I'm afraid whether students can reach up to that quality where it will be accepted by peer-reviewed journals. So here you are asking more, not about academic writing, but about conduct of research, right? And in that, I would, Tanisha, tell you that for academic research in undergrad level, it's best to give them practical problems at hand, closer to community life, wherever the student is studying. And one strategy is to tell a student, not just undergrad, but even those who come and say, I want to do PhD, what should I do? So the first thing I tell them, read. But secondly, you have to tell them, what are the questions that you find really pressing for you? That I want to search for answers for these particular things. And you have to tell the student to write in essay format whatever comes to their mind as a first step. Suppose the student says deforestation or displacement or migration of poor people. Just tell them to write like essay, what they want to say. Mostly you will find at undergrad, the student will pose a problem and also give you answers. The student doesn't have the patience to say, I'll go to the field and find the answers. So step one, let the student write something that is pouring out, okay? Second step, go to the library, read relevant articles or books. And for undergrad, give just one or two. Don't flood them with too many resources. And then step three, ask the student to come up with some questions for which we can look for answers. And after this, you should start guiding.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Hello. Hello,
Yes.
ma'am. Priya Gupta have one question regarding writing. As you have told, write something daily. So what one should write about? What one should write about?
If you're in academics, obviously you will write about academic issues. I'm not trying to say write short stories. No, I'm saying write in academic language, something related to your topic, your domain area. If you're a sociology person, pick up one topic and write about it, right?
Okay. Next question is Shivani Verma. I am stuck in my theoretical perspective. I don't know which will apply in my work. I'm stuck in my theoretical perspective. So
Theoretical perspective is not a cosmetic, my dear. Should I buy this soap or that soap? Your theory should emerge from your topic. What is your topic is my question to you.
Shivani Verma, which is your topic? It is from the YouTube viewer. That is why we cannot contact them directly.
It's okay.
Okay.
Because your topic, you know, the framing of your topic also depends on your theoretical perspective. It's a lens, as I have been saying all the time. For example, you can look at displacement. Sorry, Madam Bushra, since your issue is displacement, it's continuously coming.
No problem. You can definitely point out that this
topic is displacement. From Marxist perspective, you would approach it in a different way. From neo-Marxist perspective, you would look at it from a different way. From structural functionalism, in a different way. From ecological feminism, in a different way. So you have to decide. You know, I didn't show one picture. It's very interesting. Let me check. If I have it around, I'll show you. In Maharashtra, in my region, there is an old fable that is told, you know, like what do you call, traditional stories that we are told. And one of the fables is that 7 blind men, you might be knowing about it, of course. 7 blind men came across an elephant. Does everyone know this particular fable?
Classical example of giants.
Yes, Shruti, we know, we have a
Yeah. So, you know, any social science research problem is like that. And we all are like blind men. With our own perspective, we approach the elephant. But the elephant, as the fable concludes in the end, is what the 7 people were trying to say, plus something, the prana tattva in the elephant, right? It's not just the tail and the leg and the limb and the whatever, but there's something more. There is the brain of the elephant. We know that elephants are thinking animals and they're emotional animals also, right? So please remember, whichever perspective you take, you know only slice of reality. You are not God. You are not Sarvagya. You don't understand everything about everything. Not at all. Therefore, your perspective of theory should be linked to what in the topic you want to focus on. And of course, the school you belong to, where you're working, what your guide or your sponsor is doing. There are many external factors that also influence your theoretical position. But as I told you, it's very unfortunate that sometimes students come to me saying that I've written 200 pages. Data collection is over, data analysis is over, findings I've written. Now, ma'am, you give me some theory and I'll add 20 pages in my chapter 2. That's not the way. Theory has to be your companion from day one. You start with theory, you end with theory. Theory should be your friend who walks with you. Theory on the one hand and method on the other hand. And they will decide your specs. Please remember.
Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Ma'am, this is Indra from Bharatiya University. Ma'am, I have a query on, you say, on updation of UG and PG teaching. Like, I encountered a problem when I was teaching the UG students, when I was discussing about the development theories like Huntington, all those third world theories, theories on third world countries. They started questioning me the basic theories. They started questioning Max Weber's theory, which they have already learned. But when I was discussing Huntington's theory, they started questioning about Max Weber, like Max Weber's social action, the authoritarianism, bureaucracy of Max Weber and all. So when I again went back to teach Max Weber, so this is the problem I encountered with these UG students. Like when we are moving for some upgradation, they are again going for the classical thinkers. So I think there is a time gap between, I don't know how to handle those people. So it's consuming a lot of time. So can you give me a solution?
I think Dr. Anthony Palakal should arrange another FDP on pedagogical modifications. I think we need to pay a lot of attention on how to teach now. And we have to make our topics and our teaching more interesting, more student friendly. And basically we have to excite our students about what they're learning. I'm not trying to blame you, dear Indra, But what I'm trying to tell you is sometimes students don't understand why you are taking them to a certain venue, so to speak. So if you're taking a college study tour, you have to make them excited about the study tour first, right? And then they will come with you for the study tour, right? So that's what I'm trying to say. If they are going back to Max Weber, use Max Weber to take them to Huntington. Because Huntington, unfortunately, standardizes the world into cultural stereotypes, right?
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes,
The
yes.
Clash of Civilizations, for example.
Yes, yes.
So you should go back to, if you remember Weber well, Weber talks about, in his causality and probability discussion, Weber talks about the obstacles to true science practice. And he talks about your creed, your religion, your nationality, and your patriotism coming in the way of accepting scientific truth. So you should link Weber, you should pick up Weber and link it with Huntington and say, look at Huntington, you will see that American supremacy of Huntington makes him blindfolded to cultural pluralism across the globe. Christianity, he is taking as the lens to look at the world, and that too, American version of Christianity and lifestyle. Huntington doesn't know what are the merits of pluralism across the globe. Religious pluralism, linguistic pluralism, cultural pluralism, and the world after the Second World War and the challenges to it. People like Huntington have blindfolded American presidents to think in a particular way about Islam. And it is now widely accepted that scholars like Huntington are indirectly responsible for Islamophobia amongst policymakers, elected representatives, and even people working in the, spying and all in US and in the entire Christian world. So, we have to read more from, that's why current affairs. General discussions also will tell you a lot about Huntington's other hats. Huntington was advisor to many American presidents. And that interesting fact you could tell to your students. And you could tell them how after the 9/11 in America, Huntington's theories were read again and again and again. That's how you could link Weber and bring your students to get excited. But this is what I can think. I'm sure right now in the August gathering, there are many senior and more better teachers than me who can tell you better things probably. Maybe in the chat box, people could suggest.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm Father Anoop, a fresh research scholar, not even begun my research. And it was very useful for me, the class. The session was very enriching and useful for me. And I have a question. These days I was thinking about an issue in the area of knowledge. The situations are changing rapidly, and the relevance that I name it as the change in relevance. For example, people who are studying with a negative hypothesis that a hypothesis with an named as social media negatively negatively affect the society must change the hypothesis itself by the situations happens now. Now social media is positively enriching the society by giving them opportunity to communicate. Then those people who was, this is an example, those people who were studying the importance of socialization must think about justifications on the concept isolation because of this the situation happened in the world. And the relevance is changing, rapidly changing, because by the course of the world, the changes in the world. And one who is preparing to write an article in a magazine or somewhere, having many things read and preparation, and the change happens. And
okay,
what
what's
I
your
will
question, Anu? What's your question?
And by this change, when one prepares, read after reading many things and preparing, going through many authors, and the situation, if the relevance change, what will he do with this article?
So if I start writing an article and by the time there is social change, what do I do?
Yes.
There are two things. First of all, negative hypothesis or positive hypothesis. I think sociologists don't take side. Sociologists complicate matters. First thing in recent years about sociology is we don't accept white or black. We are trying to bring out both the sides of the story. So for example, though you would find social media is very good because today sitting in Pune, I can contact you and talk to you. I think I am half satisfied. Not just because I'm deprived of the hospitality of University of Kerala and the good food in Trivandrum, but also because I'm not really meeting you in person as subjects communicating with each other. You know, when we meet each other as human beings, we interact with our bodies, we interact with body language, gestures, and there are many things that we want to say to each other beyond the session time also. If there is an FDP, which is every day we all are sitting together, learning together, meeting together, it makes a difference as a learning experience. So my point is, every social phenomena would have multiple sides and multiple aspects. A good sociologist or a good economist will bring out more and more aspects of the phenomena and not just say this is correct or that is correct. You know, we are not into that business. We are not marketing agents and we are not political parties. Okay? So we are researchers and we should know the line that divides us, that separates us from other spheres. So I would say that first of all, let me also confess that I'm a bad person to explain hypothesis business because I'm seriously pursuing qualitative research with institutional ethnography as my method. The latest book that came out as a result of international collaborative research project, there also we have followed actually new urban studies as the theoretical field and institutional ethnography as the methodological choice. So I'm not a good person to answer this. You should ask this to others. But I would only say that don't get into black or white. We should bring out both the aspects.
Okay, ma'am. There is a question from what a research scholar do when his or her teacher says under whom he or she is working, theoretical perspective is not necessary. You got a question?
If you are doing it for a degree, accept it and get your degree. Don't quarrel, don't fight, end of the story. Yes, Yamini?
Good morning, doctor. So my question to you is it possible for you to explain what you meant by globalizing your local narrative and how do we do it without actually generalizing? Because doesn't that become an important ethical question?
You have to anchor your research questions and your research project by reading a lot of work from other parts of the globe. What people are talking about displacement in case of Brazil, in case of Australia, in case of Argentina, in case of maybe other similar places like Kerala, whatever. So first step is your reading should become global. So what are the parallels of the research problem that you have chosen for yourself with a geographical location in India? What other people are saying in other parts of the world? That is first. Secondly, as I said, update and upgrade your theory and methodology. If you do that, then the language also changes. You borrow those latest terms, latest theories, latest methodologies, your strategies of research also change. And if that is so, then your narrative becomes global narrative. I'll give you two examples. If you read Michael Burave's book, or many books and some articles, where slowly he came to what he now calls public sociology. But he began by using, ethnography, he calls as extended case study method. So he redefined method also. And you know, most of these global scholars work in other countries, other contexts also, not always by traveling, but by looking at databases and other government reports. You know, for example, government report of Brazil, government report of South Africa. We never think about referring to these things. In India, we are usually told, do you think you're great? Shut up. That's not true. If you're really ambitious, if you really want to publish abroad, you will have to engage with people abroad. You have to go for conferences, international conferences, by paying the money. And I'm saying it because I have done it. I have done it myself. Without any funding, I have gone because I wanted to learn. I was doing my PhD in the field of social movements, and I really wanted to learn world level perspectives. So I went in 2002 to Australia for International Sociological Association Congress by paying money. And I can tell you, I met Manuel Castells, I met Wallace Stein, I met these people, and my life was changed forever. I met Cynthia Bowlby, for example. All these great sociologists I met one-on-one in the queue for coffee, or just outside the room after they finish their lectures. That changes your whole perspective. You know that the world is too big and you are in an ocean. You don't become, you know, self-satisfied, complacent person. I am so great. You know your limits, but you can dream of doing something better, right? That's what, Yamini, I'm saying. So global, local, I'm not saying it in a rhetorical way or in a political way also. But I'm saying, how many of us are really trying to go to Sri Lanka to study something? Last time when I came to your university, I met certain Sri Lankan scholars, PhD scholars from your department. And I felt so happy. So we can definitely establish contact and go to Sri Lanka, at least one country from South Asia. But we are not, I myself am guilty. I've done international projects, but I could not really think about a project where I would involve Sri Lankan scholars and get to know and go there and so on. So this is what I'm trying to say, you know, and it's not really, when I say global, I'm not trying to say only US or UK. I'm saying globe means globe, third world also, South Asia also, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, all this. Yeah,
Shruti,
but comparative perspective will be important.
Shruti, this is Anthony. Incidentally, Rizwan, our Sri Lankan scholar, is proposing vote of thanks today. Yeah.
I think I met him last time, and I was very happy to see him actually.
Okay, so we have the Sri Lankan scholar with us today. Yeah. Okay.
Ma'am, there is one question from Nidaji Nair. Do you have any suggestions regarding research thesis writing, particularly where to begin and the order of a thesis? Have any standard format for a social science thesis?
You know, many good books are there. I already told you one is Alan Bryman's book. It's a fat book, very easy to go with and very good. Another good book, and these are starting point basic books I'm talking about. Another very simple book is by Earl Babbie. It's also again on quantitative and qualitative both. And the third book that I really like is slightly complicated. It gives you more critical research, feminist research, and so on. It is by three authors, but Hen, Benford, and Matt, I think. There are three authors. So that is a SAGE published book on research methodology. If you want, I can write down these and send to Dr. Anthony, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Another
but
question.
Your guide has to tell you what, because every university also has certain accepted practices. Every department also has certain accepted practices. So even if Bryman says something, don't imitate it. You have to consult your guide ultimately and do it.
Okay. Another question from Jihad Hussain is that during this pandemic, there are many discussions happening around the new terms such as digital ethnography or nethnography. What do you think about this ethnography shift?
Well, I haven't really studied both of these new trends. I have heard of those, but I would say ethnography is a new fashion. But again, you should think whether the fashion is suitable to your personality. Here, in this case, your research question and your personality as a researcher also. Ethnography is very demanding. Ethnography requires involvement and long time involvement. So you should ask yourself whether it is really your cup of, your cup or no. Yeah.
Another question from Manbinder Kaur. Ma'am, please suggest some books for case studies.
Again, these 3 books are good enough. You can go through them. And lastly, I also remembered Somek and Levin are the editors for one fantastic book. What they do is every technique that they take, for example, case study, then they will give you one short write-up about what that method is, what are the techniques and small steps that you should follow. And then they go on to talking about 2 pieces of research they will give you as examples, how it was followed in actuality. So it is a kind of demonstration that they give you. And I really like the book edited by Somek and Levin, Somekh, and Levin, Lewin. If you want all 3-4 names, I can send to Palakkal sir.
Sure, sure. Dear participants, if you have any other questions, you please ask to her.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello, Preeta. Hello, Preeta.
Hello, ma'am. Ma'am, it's a very basic question actually. How to formulate a research question in a proper way?
Again, your theoretical stance will decide what the research question is. So I would say even your research question should be reformulated at least 4 times in the entire research project period. And this happens in qualitative research. But usually we always say that 6 months you have to give to formulate the research question. On the one hand, you will be making discussions with different scholars and your guide. On the other hand, you will be reading lots of books, articles in the area of the subject that you have chosen, the particular subject that you have chosen. And thirdly, you will be reading about theory and methodology. So a combination of all of this for 6 months, very seriously, every day 4 to 5 hours, can lead you to a serious and good quality research question. Please remember, social science research is not part-time hobby. It's full-time professional activity. If you do it that way, it becomes rewarding. Otherwise, it's haphazard.
Ma'am, there is one question from Trisha Bakshi. Ma'am, can you please talk about qualitative narrative research?
I've already talked about qualitative research, and narratives basically come out of oral history or life history narratives or case study or unstructured interviews. So narrative research is a broad name. It comes from humanities. In social sciences, you would pick up a method like unstructured interview or case study or life history approach or oral history to arrive at a narrative. What is a narrative? Following your research question, you're collecting huge chunks of data in terms of memories, opinions, perceptions by the respondent. And all of that qualitative data is called narrative. Okay, so you don't really call it data, you call it research material, or you can call it narratives. Okay, now what is this research? Again, as I told you, first you have to decide which method, which technique you're going to use, and first of all what your research questions are, for what you're doing all of this, that you have to decide. That's narrative research.
Okay. Next question is from Tanisha. Could you delineate newer types of content analysis that have come up recently?
There is thematic content analysis, which I have, my students have worked on, my research students have worked on, which is called thematic content analysis. And the other recent one you all must be knowing, of course, is discourse analysis or critical discourse analysis. I myself prefer critical discourse analysis than the post-structuralist discourse analysis. So these are the two I can tell you.
The next question is how to avoid plagiarism.
Pandora's box. A new session Dr. Palakal will organize.
Yeah.
But your commitment, your passion, and your ethical commitment will save you from getting tempted and getting caught into plagiarism. Whatever is yours is yours. Whatever is not yours, don't use it. Simple. And there is training to avoid. For example, I want to quote someone. How do I quote? You should get training in that. Then it is legally accepted that you will use. No researcher can be on his own or on her own. None of us. As I told you earlier, we are part of an academic community. We will use works by others. But then what is plagiarism? It is theft without giving credit. So don't do theft. You can always draw humbly on other people's work by citing, by giving reference. That's what we want. Give credit to others.
I think the participants are much more interested to hear from you more about research.
But I think it's almost 12. I have to run.
Okay. So we can wind up to now itself. So we are coming to the end of today's session. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your wonderful interaction and fruitful lecture. I think our chat box is full with their participants' feedback. From that itself, we can understand that the participants are really they got something take away from your lecture.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. On behalf of Organizing Secretary, on behalf of Department of Sociology and IQAC Research Union, I would like to express my sincere thanks to your lecture. So now I welcome Rizwan, Commonwealth Fellow Research Scholar and the faculty of Southeastern University in Sri Lanka, Department of Sociology, University of Kerala, to propose a formal vote of thanks. Welcome, Rizwan.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yeah, audible.
Okay. So it is a great pleasure for me to take this opportunity to propose the vote of thanks in the third day session of the international webinar series. So on behalf of the Department of Sociology and IQAC of University of Kerala and the Researchers Unions, first of all, I would like to thank Dr. Anthony Palakal, the organizing secretary of the international webinar and the head of the Department of Sociology, University of Kerala, for his wonderful organization and a valuable international webinar. This is need of the hour. Thank you very much, sir. And I would like to thank IQAC of University of Kerala and the Researchers Union of University of Kerala for their collaborative organization of this international webinar, a great success. And next, I extend our sincere thanks to Dr. Bushra Begum for chairing the session and moderating the question and answer session very effectively. Thank you, ma'am. And next, we would like to extend our sincere and wholehearted gratitude to our speaker and the research person today, Professor Dr. Shruti Tambe, Head Department of Sociology, Savitribai Phule, Pune University. So thank you very much, ma'am. Your session was very, very useful and very informative and wonderful. We don't have any words within a short time to express our sincere gratitude to you. However, it was a very noteworthy session, and we hope that your every word will definitely helpful to the researchers, academicians, as well as to the research scholars for enriching our, the research work as well as publication, writing as well as publication, ma'am. So we have gained more insights on the topic of the art and craft of academic writing from your lectures today. Thank you so much, ma'am. And next, I would like to thank all the teachers from the Department of Sociology and the faculty from MSW from the Department of Sociology, University of Kerala. And also, I must thank the other faculty members from University of Kerala and other institutions. And finally, I must thank all the participants and research scholars as well as the students for your active participation from various online platforms to conduct this session a great success. So thank you very much to the organizing committee for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Hello, Dr. Bushra.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
You may please, wind up. Yeah, I think it's we have come to the conclusion. And Professor Shruti, thank you very much once again. On behalf of the Department of Sociology, University of Kerala, it was a wonderful session, no doubt. Now let me make an announcement that tomorrow, the 4th day, we have Professor R. Indira, formerly head of the Department of Sociology, University of Mysore University, and former president of Indian Sociological Society. And she is, and people who know her know that she has done a number of researches, and a very accomplished researcher. And her topic is very interesting, that my tryst with successful academic writing and publishing. So let's all join tomorrow and listen to her. And I hope it will be a very, very interesting and insightful session. Thank you very much once again. Let's call it a day for today.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.